911, what's your emergency?
Help! I'm having the worst day ever!
All right, and welcome back to the First Respodcast. I am
back.
Ryan Kearns, your spooky little host who's scaring the most.
I'm Jane Mulcahy. I'm your spooky little host who is scaring the least.
Oh,
yeah.
And we have a very exciting episode to talk about today. I think this was a big one for this season.
Very intense episode.
Very intense episode. This was one of the ones that I remember the most from my initial viewing as being like sucking me into the show. You know?
Yeah, it's very memorable.
Because like you think about it, and it's like a plane goes down and they have to do a water rescue while dodging fire and like electrical sparks, and like it kind of like it feels kind of banal and like almost pedestrian when you compare it to all the stuff that they've had to do since then, like even in the season 8 premiere.
It's a pedestrian plane crash.
It is. When you compare it to fucking Athena's flying the plane as it's falling apart and they're doing all of this in the air.
Well, yes, and
it's like, okay.
That is... I did want to say that I think it's really funny that this episode is called Worst Day Ever, given that I feel like any episode of 911 could be titled Worst Day Ever.
Yeah.
Or like so many of them could be.
Oh, it goes back to Abby's monologue, right? Like there are two kinds of emergencies.
Right.
There's the ones we have every day, right? No, that's actually a good point though. Like I feel like when you think about it, like in the grand scheme of things, like this isn't even like in the top 10.
No, I feel like Upside Down Cruise Ship would be my worst day ever.
No, definitely. I mean, like even like the earlier one, like I remember how terrified you were of the roller coaster call.
Right, that's my worst day ever. Actually, Bee-nado. That's somebody's worst day. Well, I am allergic to bees, so.
Yeah, I was about to say you're allergic. You're literally that.
I would be that girl in the car.
Yeah, you'd be the girl in the car. I'd be the one that's like in the pool, like
right.
hiding from the swarm of bees because I thought it was a good idea to go in the pool.
Please, Eddie, spritz yourself down with this girly perfume.
I need to rewatch that scene. I need to rewatch it. I love that like GoPro shot of Ryan Guzman's
Such
exhausted
an insane
face.
Creative choice.
And they used it in the trailer too, so you know they were like really happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like thinking like it's almost like anime power scaling how worse the days get for these guys going forward.
You kind of just have to accept that it's going to keep escalating and you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit.
I remember like when I was watching through season 2 for the first time back in the day, and like episode 1 happened and there was that giant like San Andreas earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that. Like that's a spoiler, but like I was like, where can they go from here?
Did you know the writer of this episode he wrote only 2 other episodes of 911 and they are the season 2 earthquake episodes.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've been like background checking the writers of the episodes to see if there's anything interesting to say. So yeah, this one was written by Zachary Reiter, which I think is how his last name is pronounced. Maybe it's Reiter. It's Reiter, but I hope it's pronounced Reiter because I think it'd be really funny to be a writer named Reiter.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where like you like gravitate towards like a job that your name fits.
It's your destiny.
Like you know, like Bowser from Mario, right?
Oh yeah.
The current like president of Nintendo is like his name is like Doug Bowser.
Oh yeah, I think I have heard that.
Jumping into the episode, we have a cold open. And this is a rare cold open that does not contain a 911 call.
Yeah, it's a cold open of a plane starting to crash. And I have to say, I was once again reminded of the Final Destination series.
Yeah.
It's like episode 2, we got the roller coaster thing from Final Destination 3. Episode 3, we got the sort of something that was sort of similar to the logs on the road thing from Final Destination 2, and now we have a plane crash sequence somewhat reminiscent of the plane crash from Final Destination 1.
Yeah.
Like especially that shot where, you know, right before the title drop, she looks out the window and the wing of the plane is on fire. That felt very Final Destination to me.
And like when they like roll up later, we'll get to this, but like when they roll up later and like there's like a lady like in her seat washed up on the beach.
Right.
It was like that scene where like the girl gets sucked out of the side of the plane.
Yeah, one of them gets like ejected, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So now I have no choice but to ask, is season 1 of 911 like directly influenced by the Final Destination series?
Listen, I can't speak to what was in the writers' hearts, but I do know one thing. I know two things. One, Ryan Murphy is a gay person.
True.
And two, gay people love horror movies.
Also true.
So all I'm saying is the pieces are there. It would not surprise me in the slightest.
So it's like Brad Falchuk's contributions are Mad Max references, and Ryan Murphy's contributions may be Final Destination references.
Exactly. So I think the challenge for us going forward is properly identifying which specific elements of this show come from the heart, mind, and soul of Tim Minear.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, because he also loves his movie references.
He does, but in kind of like a different way. You know, he's big on like a lot of visual references, and
I mean, I would say he does a lot of direct references, but also they tend to be pretty mainstream stuff, like, you know.
Yeah, the Die Hard, the Speed.
Yeah, Die Hard, Speed. What's the one? Ocean's 11.
About this this opening scene, you know, on the plane. You know, we're following this sort of flight attendant as a sort of a point of view character going into it, and she interacts with all these different airline people, not airline people, like passengers. That's the word, passengers. And so there's this douchebag who harasses her in first class. There's this little girl with her little stuffed monkey. There's a seemingly nice guy who, like, you know, apologizes on behalf of all men.
I was going to mention this because he turns out to be a good guy, and he's clearly supposed to be framed as a good guy, but I do find that sort of thing annoying of like, on behalf of all men, I apologize. Yeah. It's like, okay, just stay seated, just stay in your lane.
That like, gave you the ick.
Yeah, like just do right by doing. You don't have to tell me you're apologizing on behalf of all men.
Yeah, just be about it.
But then that guy dies horribly, and leaves behind his pregnant wife, who he clearly loves. Yes, so I guess it's fine.
There's this there's this horny couple that wants to join the Mile High Club before it's too late.
Yes.
And so they lock themselves in the bathroom while the flight attendants are doing their final rounds. Last but not least, there's this mother-son duo, and he's getting ready for his first date. He's like 10 or 11 or something.
So young. I was
so young.
Like, who is dating? Kids these days should not be dating this young.
Well, I would hope a fellow young person.
Well, obviously. I'm just saying, that was wild to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, kids are definitely looking younger nowadays. But he's got
that kid was 27.
That kid, Albert Einstein. But he's got this like prop deck of cards, and like the joke is that they're all Jack of Spades.
Right, he's a little magician.
Yeah, but like, you know, he's an amateur because he reveals his trick.
Right. This little kid's a fucking terrible magician, first of all.
Terrible magician. And he deserved to be in that crash.
So true. All fake magicians are evil.
Notice how the engine didn't give out until after he revealed his trick.
Ooh, that's true. That plane was pro real magician.
That plane was what said, "Not today, bud. Not today. We demand to be taken seriously."
I was also going to say that plane said, "We demand to be taken seriously."
But then it goes down, engine's on fire, and we don't really get a reason for this, but honestly, given...
It's kind of like just everything apparently goes wrong in the most disastrous way very quickly.
And kind of prescient, honestly, considering what's been in the news recently.
True, it was probably a Boeing. Oh, man.
It was probably a Boeing, yeah. So
like, we do get like a little look into the cockpit, and yeah, all that is really communicated by that is like, oh shit, it's going down, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Gotta put her in the water. We're too close to these buildings.
Yeah.
9/11 times 100.
Oof. And then, of course, we see the woman, like, lift the window shade and the wing is on fire. Final Destination core.
Yeah.
And then we cut to our little title drop.
You got Final Destination. I got a little bit of Twilight Zone.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that too. They should do a Terror at 40,000 Feet or whatever that episode is called, inspired episode of 911. Where the emergency is just that there's a big scary monster on the wing of an airplane.
Ooh. That would be a good, like, Buck episode, because I feel like he would totally see that.
That shit would happen to Buck.
Yeah, it would so happen to Buck.
No one would believe him. It's not Buck's fault that he was blessed with second sight.
Okay, so we end up in from the title card to the firehouse, where Hen is making some delicious, nutritious stir fry, and Buck, who says he's full, is the girlfriend who wants a fry.
This guy has got to stop, like, picking up food with his bare hands out of the communal serving like containers in the 118 firehouse, because it was gross in episode 1 and it's gross in episode 4.
You know he's not washing his hands, too, before it.
Exactly. And he's having sex with girls in the fire trucks.
Right.
Maybe not at this point.
We know, but we know where those hands have been. Even the memory lingers.
Disgusting. So I guess that was a Buck 1.0 thing, just like picking up food with his bare hands out of the pan.
But... I mean, it could be, but like, to be honest, I could totally see him doing that this season.
Ugh. He's
still got a little gremlin in him.
Yeah. He needs more therapy.
He needs more therapy. I would have suggested a male therapist, but that's off the table too now.
Off the table too.
Maybe an AI chatbot.
Her. I found it interesting in this scene that Bobby is not cooking for everybody. And I mean, maybe it's probably not intentional, but it could be like foreshadowing that he's not at the top of his mental game, that he's not like doing a family dinner for everybody. But anyway, Bobby is over in the corner eating by himself, and Buck starts badgering Hen about what Bobby's little book that he's always writing in is all about.
Yeah. His little black burn book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Oh, I just said that, and it's literally a burn book.
Ooh.
Ooh. And Hen is very adamant, says, my third month into working here, I barked up that tree, and don't do it. Don't do it.
And then Buck, of course, is like, well, I'm built different, so I'll be fine. And Hen is like, well, just make sure when he punches you in that pretty face, he does it on the side that already has a mark, which is kind of an insane thing to say.
Insane. They completely stopped referencing his birthmark after this season, but it's very prominent.
Right. I was thinking about that, and I was wondering, I wonder if they're just like trying to bring it up from time to time, almost so that new viewers maybe like won't be confused or something, like just to acknowledge that it's there and it's just a thing he has.
I guess it's also maybe because they're still building the foundations for these characters. So I guess like while you're still doing that before you have like a completely full developed sense of who they are as people, it kind of makes sense to hone in on like physical characteristics too. And Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk like to do that a lot in like Glee and everything. They would constantly make comments about like the actors' physical appearances, like in character and everything like that.
Yeah, they kind of like having characters like drag each other for stuff like that. I swear there's a line, I don't remember if it's in an episode we've covered already or one that's still to come in this season, but I think it's Athena has some line to Buck where she says something about his, quote, B-movie star looks, which I always think is really funny.
B-movie? Does she... Wait, hold up. What kind of B-movie does she mean?
As in, like, the letter B, not the B-movie.
Oh, okay.
Like B-movies, like, as opposed to A movies.
I was thinking she was, like, thinking about, like, did he get stung?
Oh, I don't think so. I think she's just, I think it's my kind of diss where you're saying like, you're hot, but like not A-lister hot.
Yeah, you're like Ed Wood hot. You're like, right. you're like a particularly fine brand of John Waters hot.
You're like that guy from the Sharknado movies.
Was that not Jason Statham?
No, it's a different man.
Oh no, Jason Statham was the Meg, wasn't
He's
he?
the Meg, which the Meg are
He's
like,
the Meg.
the Meg are probably B movies in the traditional sense, since B movies can absolutely have a theatrical release. If anything, Sharknado might be more of like a C or D list kind of thing, if we're really going there.
But emotionally, the Meg does feel like a blockbuster, or at least feel it has the earnestness of a blockbuster.
Well, they are technically, yeah, but they also, I think in the very traditional definition of B movie, it's like they are like real theatrically released studio movies, but they're like not in the same lane as like real theatrically released studio blockbusters.
I think I need to adjust my definition of it then, because like when you said B movies, I thought of Ed Wood and John Waters. So and that's like definitely down the list.
It's sort of, I think those still technically count. I also don't know like how much is official definition and how much are like colloquial definitions. In my mind, I almost think of Ed Wood as like more of a Z movie kind of thing, but I think the whole Z movie thing might be just a colloquialism. I'm not sure that's a technical term. And John Waters probably are B movies, I guess.
It's like an A-list actor versus a B-list versus a D-list versus a whatever list, right?
Right. And I think traditionally in Hollywood, B movies basically just meant like a lower budget class of movies produced by like lower budget studios, but they were still theatrically released, and sometimes they would be very successful, but yeah, they were kind of like the budget side of Hollywood.
Well, wasn't Star Wars considered like tacky in that way? So they were considered tacky, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a B movie.
Yeah. And then that just became like the highest grossing movie of all time for a little while.
Right. And I mean, it starred like mostly unknown actors, relatively unknown, some of them, so I think it applies in that way.
I genuinely think the biggest name in that movie going into it was James Earl Jones.
Yeah, probably. Or no, Alec Guinness, probably.
Yeah, Alec Guinness as well, yeah.
We're getting off topic. Okay, so...
Yeah, we fully are.
I also wanted to say, I think that line from Hen is interesting because it kind of implies that when she tried to ask Bobby about it, he punched her in the face.
He punched her in the face.
I'm sure that's not actually what she means, but that was my thought.
Oh my god, could you imagine?
Bobby's like, I don't discriminate.
These hands are rated E for everyone.
Oh god. So Buck goes over and tries it with Bobby. He makes a big mistake of admitting that he's already snooped and read his little book, which is like major crossing of boundaries. So Bobby, kind of understandably, he doesn't punch Buck in the face, but he like slams him up against a wall. Like, hey, buddy, don't do that again.
It's a little WWE. It's a little, he puts a smackdown on him a little bit.
But it's fun because it's like, imagine, like Bobby now would never, you know? So I think it is fun to see how far we've come, how different he is at this point.
Because he's like in the throes of his issues right now. You know what I mean? He's like really in the thick of it.
And it is kind of interesting, like, you would think that like the plane crash is what triggers like his mental issues later in the episode, but there are clues that like maybe he's already kind of having a low point right now.
So we go from the WWE SmackDown moment, Buck's a little shaken. We go from there to Abby gets a call from someone on the plane who, you know, it's going down. They're presumably flying over LA. They're passing by buildings and they're like, help. Like, I don't know what you're going to do, but send help. We're going down, you know.
Yes.
And then from there, it sort of hard cuts to the 118 rolling up on the scene of the beach and the planes in the drink.
Yeah. This is kind of just a brief scene where they first start to get in boats on the water to rescue people. They pass, like you said, somebody who's kind of apparently been ejected right in their seat, who's already dead. So I think they're just setting the scene for like, oh, this was a very deadly crash.
Do you notice how in season 1 they never actually shoot the money shot of the disaster?
Oh, I feel like, are there not any money shots like later in the episode?
I mean, we have the plane like sinking into the water, but it's like, you know, it's clearly on the soundstage and all that.
You don't see it crash.
There's just no like CG, like, you know, like
I guess that's
plane
true.
going into the water, or like the roller coaster, like, you know, stopping and him like falling out of his seat.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It feels like we get the setup and then we get the aftermath, but we don't get the actual disaster itself, which is interesting because it's like maybe they just didn't have the budget for it, or maybe their focus was to have the POV be with the firefighters when they roll up and it's already in the midst of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a budgetary thing because they do say now that it's like one of the most expensive shows on network TV. So I wonder if like they worked up to that.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't always like that.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine, like, even for Ryan Murphy, I can't imagine they, gave him a Game of Thrones size budget for season 1 of a procedural.
Yeah, so we cut from that to Athena at a kids' party, by which I mean a teenage house party. This is a follow-up from last episode where, her daughter attempted suicide because she was being bullied by these girls, and Athena, in her Athena way, is now unethically going to go harass and arrest them.
This is a flashback from like 8 hours before the crash.
Oh yeah, the whole episode has this sort of format where we keep jumping around to like 20 minutes after the crash, 3 hours before the crash. How do you feel
about flashbacks and like non-linear storytelling in that way?
I think it's fine on principle. I will say I'm not sure how necessary it was in this particular episode. I think the format works fine, but there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it, it doesn't seem like.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe they just wanted to be able to cut to things that happened before that. They wanted their crash cold open, which does kind of disrupt the timeline a little.
I don't know. I find flashbacks to like generally be kind of like a frustrating thing, because like when I'm in the moment with something, I like to stay in it versus like, and then you flash back and it almost feels like the show is interrupting you. Mm-hmm. So I've never been a big fan of them for that reason, but I do think that they work well here, just because we get the disaster, and then sort of to pace it out, we get the flashback following up this interesting story point about Athena stalking these bullies.
Yes. So this is probably one of her first really big bad cop moments. She rolls up to this house party. She, I guess, has tracked them down somehow. She comes up to this girl. We get a little flash of like what the girls are doing at the party. And this bully is like the most comically evil teenage girl character possibly of all time. She has this crazy line where she's like, I haven't slapped anyone all day and I am so frigging high. Things teenage girls say.
It's like Heather from Total Drama Island, like dropped into like LA.
Right.
No, I mean, like it's very comical. It's very like cartoonish. And it kind of read like maybe they don't know how to write teenage girls that convincingly.
Oh, definitely. And I would say that is something that has persisted on the show, because in the most recent episode, they had characters implying that teenagers call each other Sigmas. Did you think that was weird?
I have not seen the episode yet.
Oh, I thought you had. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
We've been like sending memes about it.
I saw the clip of Angela Bassett saying Sigma.
It's just, this isn't like a spoiler, and I can cut this out, but there's just a weird...
No, do your thing. Continue.
Oh, there's just a weird thing where, like, she's doing kind of a dare style, like, lecture to a class of teenagers, and there are these, like, 2 teenage girls who won't pay attention to her, and the teacher tells her, like, yeah, it's like this all the time, something, like... If you're not a Sigma, and Athena's like, what does that mean? And she's like, it's their new lingo for like cool or something. And I was like, I'm sorry, the whole like Alpha Beta Sigma thing, isn't that like, that's like slang, that is internet slang, but used by like incels and the manosphere, right? Like, I don't think teenage girls are calling each other Sigmas. It just felt like a really weird out of touch moment.
Also, can I be completely honest? Mm-hmm. I feel like it's out.
Oh yeah.
I feel like Sigma is out, and it has been for a while.
Which I want to say, like, oh, they wrote and produced the episode a while ago, but this is network TV, so their turnaround time is actually pretty short. Like, they probably shot this summer?
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of rough.
Maybe they should have made it Brat themed instead.
Yeah. If you're not Brat, these teenagers don't listen to you.
Okay, so we're at the party. Athena shows up. She says, like, I'm a police officer doing my job to, like, her partner or whatever. She uses her badge to get in, and these girls they're doing edibles of some variety.
It appears to be, I think it's confusing, because I think they actually might be smoking, but then they show them eating, like, gummy bears. But I think they might just be regular gummy bears, because then when Athena finds weed in her bag or whatever, I'm pretty sure it's just weed.
Right. So it's not like weed gummies.
So maybe they were just trying to like show us all the visual indicators of somebody using cannabis to be like, just to hammer it home.
What kind of fucking weed party is this?
Just so much weed. I mean, she does have the line. She says, I haven't slapped anyone all day and I am so friggin' high. I guess she really was high.
I feel like maybe this is just me talking about my experiences, but like when like I'm at a house party and like we're smoking, this is not the vibe. Like playing music, like dancing
Right.
outside at the pool. I feel like you want to be inside, like having like a stoner vibe.
It's kind of like the classic iconography of like the teenage house party where everybody's like drinking out of red Solo cups, but they've decided to make it about weed, which kind of confuses the whole thing.
Yeah, because it's like, have you guys smoked before? I mean, maybe it's no. You know what? It's sativa. It's fine.
It's whatever strain makes you want to slap a bitch, apparently.
Right. No, honestly, like they were acting like they were on E or something. Like they were acting like they were on E and drinking like a hard seltzer or something.
Well, you know what? That is a classic kind of. What else do we expect from like a network TV show trying to be like cautionary tale about teenagers and weed? It's not usually like accurate depictions.
You know how that party started?
Hmm.
She went up to her friends and she said, "You guys want to like
Blaze?" We're gonna call you Blaze because you blaze.
She got so high that she missed her diabetes medication and almost died.
Such a convoluted way to get hurt because of weed. Okay. So Athena comes up to this girl. She's like, actually, neighbors were complaining about the smell. The girl's like, I assure you, officer, we weren't using marijuana. And Athena goes,
Marijuana?
Yeah, Athena goes, I didn't say that. Actually, they were talking about, she has like the craziest line. She's like, They're talking about some skanky ass hoe bringing a real stank to the neighborhood. And you're like, whoa,
bringing down
whoa.
the property values.
Bringing down the property
values is crazy.
Like,
absolutely crazy.
It's a good read, but also it's like Athena, she's like 14.
Yeah. I get it. It's like she's mad, and granted, it's hysterical.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hysterical. But yeah, it's also insane and completely unhinged.
Very unethical. And then she just arrests the girl. They get into like, you know, it escalates. The girl is nasty to her back. The girl's friend explains to her, oh, that's May Grant's mom.
Not just nasty. Like Athena like says like, you know, like May tried to kill herself, and Layla goes like, good. Like yeah, I would have arrested her ass too. God damn.
It's true. It's one of those things where, like I said last time, like I do understand that fury, but also when you are a police officer, the power dynamic is kind of different.
Yeah. Ethically, this is my whole like conflict with her this episode, is that ethically I disagree with Athena, like her actions as like an official, but emotionally, like I'm not gonna lie, I'm completely on her side emotionally.
Sure.
Like, and that's the joy of viewing something as fiction.
Right. So true. So she does find weed in the girl's bag, so she arrests her. We cut right to the police station where the girl's parents show up, and they're very mad. The girl's dad is an attorney, and as Athena said when she was arresting her, a tax attorney, I think is what she says.
Attorney.
But the attorney dad shows up, and he's like, I play golf with one of the, you know, top whatever defense attorneys in the county or something. And so he's threatening her. Luckily for Athena, they all get a call that, you know, there's a plane crash and they've got to go to the airport and help clear people or whatever. So she's like, saved by the bell, goes to the airport.
And then we're there, and this is such a 2018 moment because we get an ISIS name drop.
Oh, God, yeah.
We get an ISIS name drop because they're trying to determine that it's not terrorism. They're trying to determine the cause of it. They have like Boeing on the phone or whatever. They have the airline. She shows up,
and the like airport cop is really kind of spiraling and talking to her about all these things.
Yeah, they're dealing with that, and then from there we go back to the 118. They are, well, let's just say they're gonna need a bigger boat.
This is like the body of the crash rescue in this scene.
Yeah. They said the plane split in half on impact. Ugh. And so what they're getting is like the other half, right? They're getting like the body half of the plane, and like the nose is like already submerged. I believe, you know, like the pilots are probably dead, like that sort of thing. But all of the passengers seem to be in various states of alive or injured, or some of them are dead, right?
Yeah, we kind of revisit all of our people that we met in the opening. So I think the sexist guy has this thing where like his seatbelt has somehow gotten really tight on him and is cutting into him and has to rip that off.
Yeah. And his guts exposed too. It's it's so gross, you know.
It is pretty gross.
Really
I was thinking like, if it's cutting into him, is it really a good idea to like yank it off of him, or should you just like cut it off at the ends and transport him with it? Like, what if he started bleeding a lot?
Maybe they just don't have time, I guess. They say like the plane's gonna sink in like 4 minutes or something like that. We only got 4 minutes to save the world.
Ooh, I'm not a first responder. I was reading the IMDb trivia and goofs again, and I have to say, I find it really funny because all the trivia and goofs for this show are phrased in this really like kind of smug, annoyed tone where you can tell that it's like people who probably actually are first responders or know about these things and like got really pissy about the like little details not being right. So actually, let me read you one. So this one, somebody says, during the plane rescue, the firefighters go out on the boats without life jackets. Under no circumstances would a first responder go out on the water without a life jacket.
Wow.
It's probably true.
Well, I mean, sure, but
it's just like,
I don't know. Then how else would we see Oliver Stark's arms?
I guess it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, but I guess they didn't think of that. And it's just a story.
It's just a story. I mean, like, I don't know how much the perilousness of the situation would be better communicated if they were wearing life jackets.
Right. And, you know, who knows? Maybe it was a budget thing. There wasn't money for like 8 extra life jackets. I don't know. Either way, they are life jacketless on this plane. Who are the other people we see? We get back to the mom and son.
We get the mom and son. Her legs are pinned down by the seat in front of her. She's getting like crush injuries on her.
Yeah, so they're able to get
shins.
the son out of there, but the mom is trapped.
And he doesn't want to leave her at all.
Mm-hmm. And Bobby kind of very passionately is like, I will stay here and I will, you know, if you go down with this plane, basically I will too.
Yeah. Because, you know, I mean, like, this is the episode where we're really starting to learn more about Bobby and, like, getting to see flashes of his trauma with his family and everything. And so it's like we're kind of at Bobby's lowest moment. And I honestly do believe him when he said that, like, he would have gone down with her.
Yeah, I thought that was really intense and just compelling, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely was. And then while they're searching the rest of the plane, you know, obviously, like, Mr. Nice Guy drowned in his seat. And
wait, isn't Mr. Nice Guy the guy with the seatbelt? Or was that a different guy?
That was Mr. Douchebag.
Oh, Mr. Nice Guy. I got it mixed up. Sorry. Yeah, Mr. Nice Guy is dead.
He drowned in his seat, unfortunately. R.I.P. And then the horniest couple in the world are locked in the bathroom and they're pinned because of there's
like a cart, against the door, pinning the door. So Buck, I think, has the idea to take a rope and tie it to the cart, tie it to a boat, have the boat drive away and get it out of there, which almost takes off Buck's head.
Yeah, but honestly, it's a really cool shot too.
It is, and he comes so close to just getting completely destroyed by this flying snack cart.
I don't know what this neurosis is, but I love Buck so much that any episode where he's getting his shit rocked in any way, I just love. I'm just absolutely here for.
I think that's why they keep rocking his shit. That's why so many things happen to him. That's the perils of Buck. He is
exactly
constantly getting his shit rocked. I had a Buck detail I wanted to mention from actually earlier in this scene. As they're on the boat getting to the wreckage, Buck has a line where his accent bleeds through, the British accent bleeds through, which I almost never hear on this show because, as I've said...
Which one?
He says he's taking in the jet fuel that's burning on the water, and he has a line where he says, "The water's on fire."
Does he say fire?
He says fire. Go back and watch it, he does. I was very excited by that because, as I've said before, I think his accent is usually, like, really convincing. So I almost never hear it bleed through, and this is like one of the very few times it does.
I know. I didn't even hear that as I was watching the episode.
It was like pretty noticeable if you listen for it.
I'll have to rewatch. I'll have to like listen for it again because I was watching the episode and I think I was just so transfixed by the fact that the water was on fire, which is always just like a visual detail that I love.
Yeah, maybe they were counting on that to distract you. Maybe it was the only usable take.
Yeah, no, we should clarify. There is jet fuel in the water. It's leaking out. The water's on fire.
Yeah.
It adds to the perilousness, but
the water's on fire.
Something else it adds to for me is that like There are scenes and there are little shots in this episode where they're like looking at each other underwater.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you guys getting jet fuel in your eyes?
Ooh, I wonder. Yeah, I mean, maybe any of the jet fuel that's in the water is like already on fire, and the rest of it is, I don't know. I don't know how jet fuel behaves like chemically in water, like if it's totally separate or if it gets mixed in.
It's on fire. It's on fire.
The water's on fire, ain't it? That was almost like edging into Australian. Speaking of which, shout out to our Australian listeners.
Shout out to our Australian listeners. Love you guys.
We currently have one ranking on Spotify, and it is on the Australian charts for film and TV podcasts. So that's pretty exciting.
Number 16.
Number 16.
Number 16. Burger King foot lettuce.
Number 16. Australia.
But after that rope save, they get the horny couple out of there.
It's looking like Bobby and this woman are both going to drown, but Buck comes back right as the water is rising. And he's like, no, it works. Like, here, just tie a rope around her and we'll be able to pull you out. So they do. It's like ultimately a helicopter gets attached to them at the last minute, luckily, and they get pulled out of the water. And
he like has her by the hands and they're like in the air and everything. It's almost like biblical.
Yes.
He's like the angel saving her from death.
It's a very, very emotionally intense shot moment, everything.
Yeah. It's loaded with Catholic imagery, of course, because this is Bobby we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Especially with the light of heaven raining down on them from the helicopter.
Right. Ooh, this is good. I hadn't even thought about it like this.
This is like a little sort of like rebirth moment for Bobby himself, because as he's doing this, he also has the paramedic with his arms around him. It's like he's saving this woman and he himself is being saved.
Except then it like triggers him and he like goes into a downward spiral in this episode.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that complicates it. But
it is kind of interesting narratively, because you would think, that's like a redeeming moment for him, but it's like it seems to only kind of, maybe it's just that it's triggering, that it's like a mom and a kid for his personal trauma, but he actually continues to get worse after that moment. Yeah.
And then from that, we go to Abby getting a message from a man for his wife.
Yeah, it's nice guy from the plane. And a few minutes before it crashed, he just calls 911 and says, they record these calls, right? I want to leave a message for my wife and our unborn child. So he does. Yeah. Very emotional. His name is Dale.
Is it Dale or Gale? It's Dale,
I think it's
right?
Dale Marks.
Dale Marks, okay. Yeah, and obviously Abby's very affected by it.
Which, as much as I love Abby, I have to say, Jennifer Love Hewitt would have eaten this so hard. She would have been crying so hard and so effectively.
Because Connie is more of a very she's a very internal actor.
She's more of a strong type.
Yeah, but she carries a lot of her emotions inside, and you see them behind the eyes. Whereas Miss Jennifer fucking leaves it all on the field. She
would have turned on the waterworks.
Oh yeah,
both great actresses, just different approaches.
Yeah, different styles. Abby is very moved by this.
Yeah, we go to kind of the larger dispatch scene. Everybody's watching the news, and Abby, I think, is contemplating this call.
But on the news, she sees Buck doing triage with the rest of the 118.
I don't think she sees him specifically, as she sometimes has, but I think that's the implication. Yeah,
we certainly see Buck doing triage with the 118,
right?
And then from there, it's that moment where it zooms into the TV. And then we follow it, and then we're there with them. I think it was.
Abby decides to call Buck on the scene, as she is wont to do. And once again, I was just laughing at her little bashful act she always does, where she's oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so camp to me.
It is. It's cute. It's fun. It's sweet. And she basically tasks Buck with tracking down this guy and seeing if he survived or not.
Yeah.
And of course we find out that he did not.
Yeah, Buck, I think it's in a later scene, but Buck, goes up to the person who's in charge of keeping the records of who's lived and who's died. And he is trying to start small talk so he doesn't just immediately start by asking a favor. But he says this weird thing where he's like, I wasn't expecting the bodies to be so intact.
Intact.
I just was imagining, I was kind of tickled at what would you even say to that if you were the woman he's talking to? Yeah, I don't know. It's fucking plane crash.
Yeah. It's man, we really lucked out.
Yeah, like...
But of course, the consequence of that is that they're able to ID everyone, and it turns out Gale Weathers, or whatever his name is.
Dale Mark. Are you thinking of Gale Weathers? Isn't that the reporter from the Scream franchise?
Yeah, same person, I'm sure.
Same person. Dale Marks, Gale Weathers. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm. And turns out he's dead. He's dead,
and he is not Courtney Cox.
He's not Courtney Cox, unfortunately. Sadly. But that makes it sound like I want her to die.
Yeah,
no,
I didn't.
Courtney,
that's not
love you. Courtney, no. But back, we got ahead of ourselves. Back chronologically to Athena. There's an incident to report on the plane. This one airport cop is going full Rambo, tying this dude up with duct tape, including on his mouth.
Yeah, I was wondering if this might have been inspired by like the occasional moments that go viral from airplanes where someone is being mistreated. Like, remember there was that big one on United where like an Asian man was beaten by airline staff.
Yeah.
It was a few years ago, which I don't remember if that happened before 2018, but I think it might have. I don't know. That was one thought, is maybe this is just inspired by some of those moments that have like gone viral.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And like they even have like someone who like filmed the whole thing, right?
Right. So that made me think of that.
Yeah. And so Athena shows up and like she's like, "What the fuck? What are you?"
The cop is doing? Like, I'm just being normal and doing my job, but this woman says, "I have the whole thing on video." She watches it, and of course, the guy was just being reasonable. He says his dad, I think, is in a coffin in the cargo hold of the plane.
He's going to start rotting. He's going to start smelling.
Yeah, he's like, you answer the phone from my mom right now and you tell her why her husband is rotting on this plane. Yeah. It's pretty intense. And the guy just like, without really provocation, like attacks him and duct tapes him to the seat.
Tale as old as time. The cops don't need any excuse to start escalating.
Right. And one thing I wrote down was like, at least this moment is like Athena kind of intervening with a kind of police brutality.
Yeah.
Better than her being the one on the giving end of that.
It was definitely cop v cop, which I appreciated, because at least that's marginally better.
It is interesting how they're like emasculating the job of an airport cop, which actually I have another funny bit of IMDb trivia to read to you, also a very defensive tone. This one's a little longer.
Okay.
So it goes, Athena Grant boards a plane and takes over a situation from an LAX police officer. This would never happen, never in all caps. LA airport police are legitimate police officers. They have their own police chief. They are one of the police departments operating in Los Angeles. All of the officers are trained through the same system as LAPD officers, but due to federal and international laws more prevalent to that department, they receive more training in those areas. Real police officers, not security officers. No other police department would interfere. Also, a police officer uses handcuffs, not duct tape. 2 officers would likely respond to the situation as well. Los Angeles airport police officers have partners. This has 28 helpful upvotes and 17 downvotes, which is kind of bad ratio, I think.
Yeah, they got mixed reviews.
I was just thinking, like, tell me this was written by an LA airport police officer without telling me.
I mean, the insecurity is very prevalent. I mean, it's interesting that they had to emasculate the job of a security guard in order to prop up their own job.
Right.
It kind of reminded me of that bit from Family Guy. I know I keep bringing up bits from Family Guy, but like there's this one where they're in the mall and Lois is with Stewie and she's like, "Excuse me, sir, can you help us?" And he goes, "It's actually officer." And she goes, "No, it's not. It's barely sir."
Damn.
like it's like, damn, the insecurity is popping off.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, I guess I understand this person's anger because the episode definitely does frame him like he's just a glorified security guard responding to the orders of the airlines, not the actual law.
Yeah, and in doing so, it creates a different kind of hierarchy, and like, it creates a hierarchy and it lionizes the cops in a different way by sort of establishing them as the ultimate legitimate authority in this case. Right. And so Athena takes everyone into her custody by placing them all under arrest for disorderly conduct.
She has one of my favorite, like, Athena cop lines, which is, "You are all under arrest, and that means that you are all getting off this plane." And then everyone claps.
And everybody clapped.
Everyone clapped. It just feels like so, like, one of those, like, righteous kind of straw man moments. I was also thinking, she goes on this, like, very specific rant about how, like, unfair airlines are. And I couldn't help but think that this felt like a highly personal tirade against airlines on the part of the episode writer, you know?
Right. It's like, what Delta Airlines customer service representative hurt you, Tim?
Exactly.
Yeah, but that happens, and like you can kind of tell like the reason that stuff happens is to give Angela a lot of really good material to work with because she's a big star and that's important.
Yeah, and she does sell it.
And she sells the fuck out of it. I mean, like, that's the thing, like like I'm usually pretty good with like propaganda and not like bowing to it or anything like that, even when like emotionally the narrative like is like satisfying in a sense. But like something about Angela Bassett, like she could convince me that gay people were bad. She could convince me that like whatever, because she sells the fuck out of it. Like, honestly.
Yeah, I took her side in the divorce for sure with Michael.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely took her side in the divorce. She could sell me on Scientology. Like, but she shouldn't.
So after that is when we get the Buck looking into a Dale Marks scene, and he finds that Dale is dead. And
then Abby has to deliver the message.
Yeah. Well, I think directly after that, we go to Bobby at home. And this is an interesting scene where he appears to be talking to his kid, who's like, you know, why are you sad? Did you have a bad day at work? They're kind of talking back and forth. And then we see that Bobby is alone in his apartment. Yeah. So something is wrong.
He's set the table for 4 and he's sitting at it all alone with a bottle of Jack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Bobby.
Oh, sweet Bobby. No, I mean like genuinely like this show is just like the most horrible traumatic things happen to these characters and they're just
Trauma Olympics. Yeah.
Trauma Olympics, and they're just like our poor little meow meows and we just want to like hold them and cuddle them and like just give them 1,000 kisses and make it okay.
Right.
From there we go to Abby taking a call, and this woman's like, there's a big spider in my house, right?
Yeah, it's like another one of these frivolous calls.
I feel like those moments are kind of important because like after the moment of like devastation with Bobby, it kind of gives us a second to breathe before we pop back into another
heavy
round
trauma.
Of grief and trauma. Yeah.
So after that, somebody comes to her and says, Annie's here. And it turns out it's the wife of Dale, who she's called. And, you know, she wants to do something for this woman by showing her the message that he recorded for her. So she kind of sits down and she's pregnant. And Abby's like, are you sure you want to do this? Do you want to wait till we can send it to you and you can listen to it at home? But I think understandably, she's like I could see that. Like it would probably be eating at you to not listen to it right away if you knew it existed. Yeah. So I thought this was a nice creative choice where she puts the headphones on and we don't hear the audio play again. You just see her reaction to it.
Yeah, because we know what it says.
Yeah, and it's just like kind of a more interesting emotional thing to watch, just her reacting to it without actually hearing the audio.
Yeah, and we have this like very sort of beautiful somber music playing. It is very poignant, honestly. It's kind of the strength of this show that it
Yeah, they're able to sell moments like that.
And then there's a moment of closure there for Annie, but also a rare moment of closure for Abby where she sort of gets to deliver this to this woman and sort of be there with her as she's going through this. It's not very common for Abby in her line of work.
Yeah, and it's a nice moment of her being able to like take some agency as a dispatcher and sort of use her role and her resources to do something nice and productive that, in a world where she doesn't usually feel like she gets a lot of closure from these calls.
Yeah, definitely. And so we go from there to Athena gets called into her boss's office.
Yeah, Athena is getting disciplined, basically.
For the Layla thing.
Yeah, her boss, kind of a revealing exchange, I think, where the boss is like, what makes a good police officer? Like, what's a good police officer or something? And Athena lists some things, you know, people who have integrity, whatever. And her boss says, no, a good police officer is one that I don't get phone calls about or something. She says, like, someone that I don't have to do damage control on, basically. And I
Mhm.
thought, what an interesting and, again, revealing thing to say about your cop characters, in my opinion. But, you know, we talk all the time about how we dislike the propaganda, so I guess I won't get into it. But basically, at the very least, Athena is being disciplined for this, which is good.
Yeah.
The boss is like, I feel like I've been running the Athena Grant Crisis Hotline, which I think is a good potential name for this episode of the podcast.
Oh, I love that. Wait, we need to do that. We need to do that. Athena Grant Crisis Hotline. We're doing it.
Right.
I honestly, if there is anything, like, I definitely am, like, very of course I share your criticisms of the propaganda and, like, the way that it sort of flares up in that scene. But if anything, I do kind of appreciate the honesty of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like,
Sure.
there's nothing, I guess, lionizing about her saying that, right? Like, or I guess there could be if you do take an uncritical approach to the cops and you watch that and you're like, oh, you know, sure. But, like, from our perspective, I saw that line of what makes a good cop, one that I don't get phone calls about. It's like, this feels like honest in a way that I don't really get watching other cop shows.
I guess that's true, but, like, to me, the propaganda of it is the fact that notion isn't really questioned, or, like, that police chief is never framed as being anything but good and principled and effective. Because it's kind
fair. That's
it's,
fair.
like, technically honest, but doesn't really offer the sort of commentary on it that I think we are, like, already putting into it just through our worldviews.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not that important.
It's like the abusive parent who's given ultimate authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I totally get what you mean, actually, there. So yeah, I took it back.
So yeah, Athena's kind of, like, storms out of the room, like, upset that she's being put on desk duty for a while.
Desk duty. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we cut to
taken out of the field. We cut to Buck and Hen outside of Bobby's door.
Right. I guess he hasn't shown up to work.
Yeah, he hasn't shown up. They don't know what's going on with him, so they go to his apartment to check in.
He's not answering when they knock on the door.
So Buck, of course, Rambo mode, wants to kick it down just like he did with the axe and the baby in the wall.
Right.
And Hen, once again, is like, Bobby and I gave each other spare keys
in case one of us couldn't make it home one day. Yeah, so they open the door, they find Bobby, like, face down in bed with an empty bottle of Jack Daniels next to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he is, like, alive, but, like, so drunk asleep that he's unresponsive, basically. So
yeah, fell off the wagon so hard he, like,
Yes.
hit his head and got a concussion, you know?
Yeah, so they throw him in the bathtub, turn the shower on him.
And he's not pissed when they wake him up, which I totally would be.
Oh, I always think that shot is so brutal, where we see him start to wake up and then we see his POV of them sort of just standing over him in, you know, the shower raining down on him. And I just always think, like, oh, that would be so, like, you would feel so ashamed, I guess. I think that's a tough moment.
Yeah, 100%, especially when they're, like, people you're supposed to be responsible for.
Yeah, like, kind of your subordinates in a way is even more.
It's like your kids, you know.
Yeah.
It's like your kids, like, taking care of you.
Yeah. So then, you know, we cut to a little later. They're in the living room kind of talking about it. Bobby's kind of trying to assure them that this is a one-time thing, that he's okay. He, you know, was having a rough time, fell off the wagon, but he'll be okay. And then, you know, they kind of say it's okay to ask for help or something.
Hen says something very prescient about this sort of, like, recovery journey, which is also weirdly specific to the state of California.
Yes.
Where she goes, redwoods only grow so high because they move and bend with the wind. If you stay rigid, eventually you'll snap. Which,
classic Hen with the random trivia about random bullshit.
And making it all make sense with everyone. Yeah.
She is like, if no one else is going to do it, I am going to tie this back thematically.
Yeah. And like you said, Buck says it's okay to ask for help.
And so this is like a classic Bobby moment for me, where he classic Peter Krause performance moment to me, where he like thinks it over for a second and then goes, help, and then, like, completely breaks down. And I have to say,
breaks down.
I am not trying to make anyone mad at me. I think Peter Krause's performance is great. However, I was showing this show to my friends for the first time a couple years ago. I remember this so vividly. We were in London. It was the night we were moving out. The night before we had to move out of our apartment. and we had been scrambling around all day. We were really stressed. We were in the midst of having a falling out with one of our other roommates. So we were really stressed about that. She had like moved out a week or two before, but like we were kind of going back and forth still about all these things, and she was mad at us all the time. We also were drinking this like bastard version of we kind of called it like our little poor orphans Long Island iced tea, where we were trying to get rid of all the alcohol left in the house.
Nice.
So there was like a finger of vodka, a finger of rum, like half a bottle of Prosecco, and a ton of like Diet Coke. And we had already packed up all of our dishes, so we poured all of this into one of those big measuring cups and
my God.
we put like 3 different metal straws into it, and we were just all sharing it.
Wait,
like our little witch's potion.
Why does that sound good as hell?
No, it was kind of amazing. It tasted great. It was like the perfect ratio. One of these days we're gonna have to recreate it. Shout out to my London roommates, Annie and Lena, who watched a lot of 911 with me. I was showing them the show for the first time, and that night we watched the plane crash episode. And I remember when we got to that part where Bobby says, "Help," and then cries, my roommates found it so off-putting. Like, they found it, they like weren't sure at first if he was like laughing or crying. They just thought it was kind of a goofy performance moment. So ever since, even though I think a lot of people really like that moment, and I don't think it's like technically bad, I kind of can't watch that part without laughing. Like, I do think it's kind of a bizarre moment, but I love it. I love it for him. Maybe it comes out of part of his like kind of smiling all the time, kind of seeming amused all the time.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about that cocktail. Can you send me the recipe, by the way?
Yeah, I think that's all that was in it. Yeah, I'll have to write it down.
We'll have to make it sometime, like for like a special occasion. Can we just like for right now, like temporarily, just like dub it like the Peter Krause?
The Peter Krause. The Help.
The Help. The Peter, not The Help. No, we can't call it that.
Not to be confused with the movie.
No, but we have to drink that sometime, and it has to become like the de facto drink of the pod.
Oh my God, we were so like, that was honestly one of the most stressful like few day periods of my life, and the falling out with the roommate just got worse and worse. And that night, like that is a very fond memory for us. Like, we loved drinking that crazy witch's brew and watching the first few episodes of 911.
We only have one more scene to go, because you know they comfort Bobby after he breaks down, and then it cuts to Abby coming home from work. Carla is there taking care. She has a movie on for Abby's mom. Do you remember what movie it was?
The movie is Overboard, which I believe is that movie with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Damn. A bit of a deep cut, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they remade it a couple years ago, so
okay.
I've never seen it, but I'm aware of it.
And so Carla has mom duty on lock at this point. Like, seriously.
Carla, interesting moment where Carla actually like oversteps a little, and you know, she's saying like, "Are you sure you don't need me to stay?" And Abby's like, "Really, I'm fine." You can kind of tell that Abby just wants to be left alone. She's really exhausted, but Carla's kind of interpreting that as like, oh, she needs me, and she's like not able to express it. So like, you know what, I'm gonna stay. And finally Abby kind of snaps at her and is like, "Carla, like, I'm a grown woman. I just want to be alone."
With her LaCroix.
Yeah, she's drinking a lemon LaCroix. Love that.
With her fuck-ass LaCroix.
And I actually really liked this moment, though, because it felt very, like, human to me, like a real type of miscommunication that people have all the time.
And Abby immediately apologizes, you know, for her part. Like,
yeah, there's no actual bad blood.
Yeah, and then Carla, like, gets it. She gets the memo. She goes home. She's like, "I'll come back in the morning. I'll see you tomorrow." Abby has a little talk with her mom while she's like falling asleep on the couch, and her mom's she has a moment of lucidity, and she says something that hit my ear the wrong way, and I didn't like it. Abby's mom calls Carla that girl.
Yeah.
Which felt racist.
I think it maybe is supposed to be like her senile old lady brain is reverting her back to like 1970.
Yeah.
That's how I interpreted it. Maybe the most charitable interpretation.
And we'll stick with that. Yeah. And we'll stick with that.
And I mean, Abby does correct her. She's like, her name is Carla.
They sort of, the conversation kind of dies. Abby falls asleep.
Yeah, the mom is complaining about it being too hot. And, Abby's like, fine, I'll change the thermostat in a minute. And then she just kind of falls asleep, which she was not intending to do. And when she wakes up a couple hours later, her mom is gone. Her mom is nowhere to be found. Yeah. And the implication is that, probably because she was feeling hot, her mom maybe just wandered right out of the house, which is bad.
Right out of the house, leaving the door open.
Yeah.
Because she has Alzheimer's.
Yes, this is bad because she has Alzheimer's. If she's gone, we're not sure we're going to be able to find her. So that's our big cliffhanger for this episode.
They are loving the cliffhangers on this show, aren't they?
I know. It's so effective.
Yeah. Very effective.
Like, yes, let me tune in next week.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's really gripping. I'm kind of like surprised by how well done this show is. Like, I love this show. That sounds bad. No, I love this show. I know the show. What I mean is like right out the gate, they just like had a hit on their hands because they structured it so well and they wrote it so well. And they compare it to Dr. Odyssey, and they don't. It's a lost art.
Yeah, I think they probably really like set out and structured this first season, maybe because it was only 10 episodes. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of had all of their beats already planned out, which like is not always the case with every season of network TV. I think they often just kind of go in and construct the season as they go. So this one feels, uniquely tight and like everything is wrapped up. And I was noticing with this episode, it feels like it's cool that we're getting like every episode kind of focused on a different character. We had a Buck episode and then a Chimney episode and now a Bobby episode. And I think either the next or a couple after this is a Hen episode. So
yeah, I think we're getting Hen. We're finally going to get Karen. We're going to get Ava. We're going to get Denny.
Yeah.
I think we're actually going to like spend some time with Hen.
Yeah, I do think the very next episode might actually be another Bobby episode, but I could be wrong.
Oh.
We'll see.
Well, we love those too.
Yeah.
We love those too.
Well, that's about it for episode 4. Worst day ever.
Any final reflections? Was it truly the worst day ever?
Unfortunately, the only thing going through my head right now is, and we danced all night to the worst day ever. R.I.P. Liam Payne.
Oh, but yeah, thank you for listening to the First Respodcast. Follow us on social media. We are at First Respodcast because ain't no one naming their shows like us.
Exactly. Believe it or not, we are the first ones to take that Twitter username. Yeah, you can follow us I'm at Jane_Mulcahy on Twitter.
And I am at Dan, Dirty on Twitter, and at Prime Minister of Sadness on Instagram. We also have YouTube channels where we post long stuff.
Yeah, but who gives a fuck about that?
Yeah, it's not like anything's happened with that.
You can check us out on YouTube under both of our full names, unfortunately.
Under our full government names. Did you ever wanted to do like a screen name?
Oh, I've thought about it often. I thought about changing it a lot, like just making it like Jane M or something, just so it was a little less specific. But I've always felt like I'm in too deep now and I don't want to, I already have established a brand.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, you have a Patreon.
I do. I could never change the name of my Patreon.
No, I mean, I feel like I'm on the cusp of like my cutoff point to like if I wanted to rebrand my channel. Like I still like could technically do that because I only have like, I'm sub 3K. I don't have like a whole lot materially to lose by doing so, but like
you could just become Dan, Dirty, which I still don't really know what you mean by that.
Oh, it's no one knows why he's called Chimney either. It's fine.
Oh yeah, okay, that's good. It's like keeping the mystery, just like they're doing with Chimney.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you so much for listening, and if you get on a plane, just make sure it's not a Boeing.
Well, no need to fearmonger, but I guess it's also not a bad idea.
Yeah. All right. Good night, America.
Good night, America.
And Australia.
Good day.
Bye.